Hello, my YouTube people. Okay, now for the fun video. Now for the one that I might actually enjoy doing. Someone by the name of Creative Kev went ahead and jumped on the whole Ask Key thing. So, we are going to be answering our first questions. Let me get all professional real quick, not till I light this cigarette though. I'm still heated from the last video. I got calm down. Oh Lord. Okay. The first question is, do you believe in reincarnation? Absolutely. In fact, I have always believed in reincarnation. And when I was very little, I didn't know that was unusual because I can remember being like my kid's age, around 4, 5, younger, and I had these memories. And when you're little like that, you don't question it. You don't question the fact that the location looks different, the people look different, any of it. And to this day, I have bits and pieces of past life memories that are sprinkled in with my early childhood memories from remembering them a lot, because you'll see something when you're little like that and it triggers, like especially a life or two before, recent lives, or a certain smell or a certain song. I have this memory of being in the car with my grandpa when I was 3 years old, and the song Ticket to Ride came on, and by the Beatles, in case you don't know, and I'm sure you all do because y'all have great taste in music, I hope. Anyway, all these memories came to me of being in this little trailer park out in the middle of the desert. I'm from Pickaway County in Ohio. There ain't no fucking desert. I mean, there ain't no desert. And I had a lot of memories like that, being at a big group gathering in the desert, like all kinds of shit that did not belong. But when you're little like that, you just don't question it. It just is what it is. So until I was 5 or 6, I didn't know that was unusual. I just assumed everybody did it, and everybody believed that way. And because of shit that I said at 2 years old about the life before this one, my grandmother, who was, super Christian at the time, ended up abandoning the whole concept of either going to heaven or hell and there being no other. Now, she did have her theory that helped her reconcile with both ideas, where only certain people reincarnated, and I just happened to be one of those few. Bless her heart. But I guess whatever I said at 2 years old, and I can't remember the things I talked about at that age, but I have heard stories about what I talked about. And they were things that I talked about in such a real way, and, talked about in a way that a 2-year-old just wouldn't, know to make up, that it completely shifted my grandmother's worldview. So, yes, I believed in reincarnation even as a Pentecostal. I didn't even try to reconcile the two. I just knew it was what it was, and they were telling me what they were telling me. So, yeah. Have you heard of the Venus Project? No, I had not until you mentioned it, or Agenda 21. And I want to do more research on it, because just the very small descriptions that I read before I did this video, it really sounds like something that will make me have a little bit of faith in humanity again. So I'm going to check out those things and hopefully do a follow-up video so that I can talk more about them. What movies do you like? Okay, well, when it comes to movies, music, I am a very eclectic person. So it depends on my mood. I absolutely love with all my heart horror movies. I have all of my life. First one I saw was Nightmare on Elm Street, which You watch it when you're grown and it's like, oh my god, this is so cheesy. You watch it when you're 2.5, 3 years old, that shit's fucking terrifying. And we had this vent in the bathroom, and I would literally almost pee myself because I had to get the towel down to cover the vent so Freddie couldn't get me every single time I went to the bathroom. That went on for like 6 months. But I love that feeling that comes from a good horror movie, and I always have. And my mother, being my mother, she let me watch them from 3 years old on. And it's because I started watching them so little, it is really hard to find horror movies that will actually like scare me a little bit. And as far as terrifying me, yeah, that don't happen. But I get happy if I just get the little bit. Insidious? Yeah, it was Insidious. First time I watched that movie, it literally made me scream. I hadn't had that happen since I was 6 or 7 years old. And I loved it. I just loved that feeling. But it's really hard for me to find one that actually scares me. There are plenty I love, but but I also love comedies. There are days when if I didn't watch a comedy that's, good, that made me laugh, I'd probably scream. Like, that's my go-to when I am really, really down. Because I love to laugh, who the hell don't, right? But there's also, like, alright, down low, between you, me, and the fly on the wall. One of my favorite, because I love old movies too. Like silent movies. When I was little, they used to do Silent Movie Sunday on TMC. And I watched it every Sunday at midnight during the summer and shit when I wasn't in school. My grandma could not figure that out at all. She's like, dude, I have no idea where you got that from. Like, she couldn't get into it. She liked the ones from the 30s and 40s and shit, but not the ones that were silent. But I love old movies. I really, really love old movies. Like, if Clark Gable were alive and still as sexy as he was back in the day, my husband would have some competition, man. He was the Johnny Depp of his time, I'm telling you. But one of my favorite movies of all time, and I have no idea why, it's just how it's been since I saw it at 10 years old for the first time, is Gone with the Wind. Now, even as a child, I could see, like, wait a minute, they're telling the story a certain way, and there's no way that, that's how it would have been, and glamorizing, I don't know, slavery. But I love it. The movie. Not glamorizing slavery. Please don't get me fucked up and twisted on that. No, ma'am. But I love that fucking movie, and I have had people that were my internet friends refuse to speak to me after I admitted that. And I hate it, that I love it, but I love it, and I'm not gonna lie. I think anyone young who watches it should have to read the truth about the Civil War and about what was done during slavery before they watch this movie that glamorizes it, because that ain't cool. But you consider the time period it was made in, and I think that's what I loved about it when I was little. Like the way Scarlett is, when you consider the time period that the story's set in, and also the period it was written in. Like, she was a firecracker. She had her moments where it's like, bitch, come on. Like, whining over Ashley for years and years and years when she had the likes of Rhett Butler. Bitch, please. Get the fuck out of here. Oh my god. Dumb. So dumb. But that firecracker spirit, I'm all about that shit. And again, Clark Gable. Who could possibly resist Clark Gable? But yeah, there's one of my other favorite movies is Wizard of Oz. But then there's days where I'll watch shit like Still Magnolias or Terms of Endearment and bawl like a bitch, baby. I do that alone though. So it really just depends on my mood. But I watch and I love documentaries. How a lot of times I end up watching at least one documentary every day. Thank you, YouTube. Um, I don't know. I can't think of a genre of film action. I'm not really into action movies, but then there's also sexy ass Bruce Willis being all sexy and shit, and I'll watch that shit. But yeah, I like all different kinds of movies, and I have a very eclectic list of favorites. Do I use cognitive behavioral therapy? No, I'm not in therapy, surprisingly enough. And I didn't end up getting my doctorate, so I'm not a therapist. But I do know what CBT is, and I like aspects of it. That was my thing with every different school of thought in psychology. I felt like alone by themselves, they were not necessarily all that helpful. But if you had the time to sit with a person, figure out what was up with them, and take pieces from each one to help that person, I always felt like that was the best approach. And when I wrote papers with my, evidence and examples to back it up and all that, I usually ended up taking that stance that you needed pieces of all of them. Just like I feel like medication should not always be the first resort. But I also feel like there are certain mental illnesses, like schizophrenia, where you definitely need medication. So it's just a matter of actually being able to have the time to put the effort, which is hard because, our mental health care system is stretched to the fucking max. It has been for a very long time, and no one seems to care. And a lot of times, you have these little mental health clinics that serve 2 or 3 fucking counties, and they have so many patients that they just don't have the time, which is why they end up throwing medication at the problem. But if you have the time to put that effort in, I feel like I know there are therapists who specialize in one over the others, but I feel like for me personally, I would have picked pieces of each school of thought, depending on the situation. It's a good question though. Every once in a while, like, I'll hear something like that, or a research term or some shit like that, and it makes me miss school, which I never thought I would miss school. Do you do breathing exercises? Well, I'm supposed to for sure. I don't know. I've tried the one where you breathe in and out very quickly and you get all lightheaded and dizzy. I've done that before. I actually learned that from the Woodstock documentary when I was 11 years old. And of course I had to try it, if it was good enough for the hippies. But yeah, I have tried things like that, but usually when it comes to me and breath, what I typically end up doing is, like, if I'm doing a prayer, then I will, maybe 3 times or I'll say the prayer and then breathe and then, that type of deal. And in the shower, every day I do this cleansing of my auras and shit, and I breathe in and out for each direction I go to. And when I'm charging something, I always do it by, charging it, put the energy in, and then breathe your intent. Because breath is one of the most sacred things that we have. And what better way to put your intent into an object or a candle than to use your breath. So I definitely use breathing with my practice. Obviously, I use breathing. I think most of us do. But I did not word that correctly. I think we can all admit that. But I don't do like a certain breathing practice every day, although I probably should. My shitty lungs would probably benefit from that. All right, I loved your questions. I appreciate your questions. I am going to look into the Venus Project and Agenda 21, and I will come back with a follow-up video to talk about that because they sound like really stellar ideas that we need like 5 minutes ago. So thank you again, Creative Kev. And if y'all have any more questions, stick them in the comments. I love you guys.